Welcome back to another episode of the Casey Campbell podcast. Casey Campbell with you, of course, and we are pleased to be joined by Sam Paley, who drives in the MX-5 series. Of course, if you haven't heard, they just partnered with IMSA starting this year for MMR Racing. How's it going, man?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. So you have had quite the interesting start to the year. Of course, everybody saw what happened at Daytona. And then kind of going in the next few weeks, it's kind of been,
Yeah, I mean, we had a good start at Daytona. First race of the year, we ended up getting on the podium with the second place.
Crazy finish.
One of the craziest finishes I've ever seen. The top 9 cars were all within a tenth of a second.
Yeah.
So, and I think the leader coming out of turns 3 and 4 at Daytona, the leader in second place behind him finished 7th and 8th, which just shows you how much the draft was worth there. I think I was 5th coming out of the bus stop. The draft was actually worth like 18 miles an hour there, which is pretty crazy. And then that same crazy draft kind of didn't help me the next day. The driver in front of me unfortunately had a mechanical, and it probably cost me about half a second, me and the car behind me, which then we lost the draft. So I ended up getting 5th. And then just had a mediocre weekend in Sebring, and then we had a really good weekend in St. Pete pace-wise, but unfortunately we had a DNF due to an electrical problem in race 1. But then in race 2, we were hunting down the leader and ended up getting another second place. So looking forward to Mid-Ohio, hopefully get some more good points in the bag and hopefully get on that top step.
Well, this is this is a big weekend for you because not just another race and you're going racing, but it's also your home track, a track that you've raced at many times, in your racing career, whether I know you raced there in F4 as well. But what's it like to go to your home track and race? I mean, it's got to feel special.
Yeah, Mid-Ohio is my favorite track in the country. I love going there. I've been there, I've raced there twice. I tested there once, so I've been on track there 3 times, which doesn't seem like a lot, but when you've had limited car time like I have, it's definitely my most popular track. I raced there in 2018 and 2019. It's the closest track to my house, that and IMS probably, but unfortunately I've never raced at IMS. So going to my home track, get a lot of friends come up, a lot of associates, and I feel like a lot of pressure is always on me at Mid-Ohio because I feel like there's a lot of eyes on me. But I mean, it's just such a great track. A lot of people don't like it. It's not that hard. I mean, it's not that easy to pass on. Some people say the racing's not that great, but I really disagree. I think the racing there is really good, and I think you have to be pretty bold to make a pass there. And I love going for late moves, and Mid-Ohio really suits. Track like Mid-Ohio just really suits that attribute of mine.
You talk about pressure, and you said that you put pressure on yourself to do well at your home track. Do you put pressure on yourself all the time, or is it just like in these big high performance moments or races?
Yeah, I put an immense amount of pressure on myself every single race. Sometimes it's not so good, but I mean, I'm just so motivated and dedicated to doing well. And I just really want to try and make a good impression on everyone that's watching me and associated with me. And I really want to represent my sponsors well. So I don't think anyone in the series puts as much pressure on themselves as I do. And I mean, before St. Pete, I mean, I didn't even sleep that race before because I was just so with the streets and all of that, with the pressure mounting, and I knew I had to put in good results. So, I mean, I always put the pressure on myself, which helps and doesn't help at the same time, but I'm my biggest critic.
Yeah. So besides racing, you're also a college student. This is your first year at Indiana. And of course, it's always an interesting year. What do you coming off of, graduating, senior year, not having that because of COVID, and then going to your first college experience. I mean, you've been there. How do you think the college life is going? How do you manage that as well as racing and stuff?
Yeah, so I go to Indiana University over in Bloomington,
Yeah.
about an hour south of Indianapolis, and I was up there this past year. It's definitely a lot to handle. The balance is pretty hard, I'm not gonna lie. Being online this year definitely helped with that. Um, I think next year it's gonna be a lot more challenging with, predominantly in-person classes. So this year it didn't really wasn't that much affected. I remember I had an exam an hour after my race two at Sebring in Florida that I did from our Airbnb, which was kind of funny. But yeah, I had to rush off. I had to rush home to get ready for that. But it's definitely a challenge. I won't lie. It's a lot to balance. Very long days between schoolwork, um, preparing for races, working out wise, and sponsorship wise, and meeting wise, and responding to emails. Very long days, but in the end, it's going to be worth it. And hopefully, I'm already a quarter of the way through, so hopefully, I can get these last 3 years. Or I mean, these next 3 years. I'm not even halfway through yet, but these next 3 years under my belt, along with my racing career, and then obviously the goal is to be a professional racing driver. Make it my living, but I would also like to have a degree as well to fall back on.
Yeah, of course. It's a lot of drivers are doing it, not just on the NASCAR side, but as well as the IndyCar side, the IMSA side as well. It's kind of going into that. Your dream is to always be in racing professionally, but you didn't have to say where you wanted to go. I know that there's IndyCar, there's IMSA, there's always NASCAR as well, and there's other routes that you can go. Where do you want to end up? Is that really clear yet?
Honestly, it's not. So I started off in Formula cars, as you know.
Yeah.
So the goal there was probably IndyCar, but just due to monetary reasons, this year we made the full switch to sports cars. It's better for my career at this moment, and it's getting a lot of exposure right now, which is helping with sponsors. But in my career, it's just gonna have to be wherever the opportunity leads me, and wherever I get the opportunity, I'd gladly take it. Whether it's NASCAR, IndyCar in Europe, which would be awesome, IMSA. But the short-term goal is probably prototype challenge in IMSA, or Michelin Pilot Challenge, also in IMSA. That's just where I realistically see myself in the next couple of years. If I keep performing well and make good relationships, hopefully I can end up in a seat in one of those series.
So I know that there's a lot of interesting things, with getting sponsors and getting all these things. It's like, when people want to be race car drivers, they just think that, oh, it's just going to be, racing and stuff. That's actually not the case. It's actually racing is more of calling sponsors, putting together marketing plans, sponsorship appearances, doing interviews like this. It's a lot. How do you manage that as a driver?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot. Even if you're the fastest driver on track, I mean, talent's only 10-15% of it, because if you don't have the money, then you can't even get on track. So your talent doesn't even matter. So finding sponsorship is huge. Finding backing is huge, but also just in the preparation to be on track. For me personally, I know I work out at least twice a day, and right now, especially leading up to Mid Ohio, I'm on the sim for probably at least 2 hours a day as well. So I mean, it's a full-time job just preparing wise. A lot of people do reflex training, endurance training, strength training, sim training. At St. Pete, I woke up at 6 a.m. every day, hop on the sim before I went out on track, and then I got off track, went back on the sim. I worked with Symmetric Labs, and since I'd never been there before, they really helped me learn the track, learn the feel of a street course.
Yeah.
So there's that preparation, but then there's also finding sponsorship, because if you don't have sponsorship, if you don't have backing, if you don't have the funds, a lot of times it doesn't matter how good you are, because there's always someone with the funds, with the sponsorship, or with the backing, or just with the money themselves, that can take your spot. And if they might only be 3-4 tenths off of you, but it doesn't even matter, because they're the ones paying the bills. And we all know racing is an incredibly expensive sport, and money definitely talks.
Yes, it does. And then, of course, last thing for me, Mid Ohio is coming up. Of course, kind of going back to that. What do you think you wanted? Obviously, we know you want to win. You know that we've seen you run up front and know that you have the potential to get it done. What would it mean to you to get it done, though?
Oh, it'd mean the world, and my goal is definitely to win. It's always my goal every single race. I don't want to settle for second or third, even though second and third are good results. But every time you're on that podium, you always want to be on the top step. And every time I go out there in a car, it's not just I just want to finish this race. It's I want to do as good as possible. I want to win the race. Even thinking for the championship, I think a lot of drivers, you have to have that killer instinct where if the move's there, you got to go for it. But winning at Mid Ohio would really mean the world to me. It'd be probably one of the best days of my life, but I don't really want to get too caught up in that. We'll see. We'll see how I feel if I actually do get the job done, which is my ultimate goal. So.
All right. Sam Paley, thank you so much for coming on, and good luck this weekend at Mid Ohio.
Thank you. I appreciate it.